We are delighted that you could join us today for one of our monthly Lunch and Learns. Today, I am joined by Terri Goldman, who will be walking us through a bunch of QuickBooks Online tips and tricks. But before we get into the content of the webinar and I fade into the background, let me just rewind. For those of you who don't know, I'm Donna Miller. I'm president and founder of C3 Workplace. 25 years ago, we started this not-so-standard shared office facility before there were things like WeWorks and Regis. And our goal was to help companies start and grow. We've been doing that for many years, and some of the ways we do that is we provide office space on demand out of a couple of locations. We provide virtual assistants, we provide bookkeeping services, and we have a series of educational and business advisory services as well. And that's what we do. And the truth is, the C3 stands for Connect, Collaborate, Community. We believe in the power of collaboration. We've watched it fuel our growth, and we help business owners to harness that growth and help them to grow their businesses. And we believe that companies should be a force for good, and we also believe that you should teach what you know. And from that core value, our educational programs were born in a way for us to bring more content and more knowledge to more people. So that's what we're doing here during this webinar. I'm going to hand the baton to Terri in just a second, but I want to tell you that Terri's been with C3 Workplace for, I don't know, 8 years now, Terri, is that about right?
That sounds about right, going on 9.
Yeah, 8 years, and she's seen us through several different iterations. You know, what we do morphs based on what the market needs, but our core values always stay the same, and Terri is a beloved member of our team. She also is a wicked, fantastic bookkeeper. She is our QuickBooks Certified Pro, and as Terri likes to say, what she brings to the table for our clients is she likes to answer the questions before they know they even need to ask them. And in my book, that's a win for everybody. You know, when we're working with our clients, I always talk to the team. We talk about ways that we can manage up and help our clients to see around corners. And that's something that Terri is just inherently good at. So what we're going to do is, first of all, this webinar is being recorded, so you'll have access to the recording afterwards. We will have a Q&A session, and very often these webinars, they're quick. We go from 12:30 to 1:15, hard stop. We cover a lot of ground in a short period of time. It sometimes feels a little bit like a fire hose. You've got a chat window. You've got a Q&A window. As Terri does the demo, I will monitor the chat window and the Q&A window. So please do type in your questions. We'll do our best to get to all of them during the demonstration and the webinar, but of course we can always get back to you afterwards. So with that, I'm going to shut my video off, and Terri, I'm going to hand the baton to you. And you know, we're going to go through a series of shortcuts, and feel free to jump in the chat window or the Q&A window, and we'll make it as interactive as we can. So Terri, thank you so much. It's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Donna. Hi, everyone. I am Terri. I've been with C3 for going on 9 years. We're going to get you through a little bit of some tips and tricks to maybe help save you some time as you're going through your day and working in QBO. The first thing we want to look at, this is our dashboard. This is where you will always come to as soon as you open your QuickBooks account. And it gives you a lot of information, some that you look at, some you may not. But something just briefly what I want you to know is you can change this information if you want to get a quick look at something. Let's say you wanted to go to your P&L for the year. You can click on this little menu here, and it'll give you the whole year. So it'll give you a quarter, it'll give you and it'll show you your numbers. Same thing with the sales category and the expenses. The one thing that you may not realize is this bank account information here. This reflects when you go to your banking screen where you can see each individual account and your bank feeds come in. Sometimes if you have a lot of bank accounts, it may not be in the order that you would prefer. So you can actually click on edit here, and then you can move these categories, these accounts around so that you get the order you want. If you want your savings account not to show up so often, you can move it to the end. And then you hit save. And what that'll do is when you go to your banking screen, it'll actually change the order of the accounts on the screen here. You see your savings is now listed over here. These are the accounts that are connected to QBO. So if you have more than 3 accounts, you don't want to have to scroll through them to see your checking account if it happens to be at the end of the list. Just a quick thing, it may not seem like a whole lot, but when you have to scroll through all your accounts each time you want to look at something, it saves you a few minutes every day. It starts to add up.
Absolutely.
So that's just another item that, it's a way to just save a little bit of information. The other thing I want to show you on this screen before we move on is if you're on this screen, there is a privacy button here, and it will hide all this information. So if somebody comes to your computer, you can hit the privacy screen, and they don't have to see anything you don't want them to see. Click on, turn it off, and everything shows right back up for you. So that's just a few little quick tips there so that you know how to handle your dashboard a little bit better. If you have any questions on this, let us know. As Donna said, put it in the chat box or in the Q&A, and we'll touch base on that. Otherwise, we'll move on. Donna, anything yet?
Yeah, I have to say that I didn't even know that privacy button existed, and that was great. And just in the spirit of not assuming, just tell our audience why. I think it's obvious, but you know me, Terry, I'm not one to assume much, but explain to our audience why they want to connect their bank accounts and how that's a time saver. I know we might get into that a little bit more, but being we're on the dashboard here.
Okay.
This dashboard assumes they're connected, correct?
Correct. That's why you see the numbers here where it says the bank balance and in QuickBooks. Anything that has information. If you see the Visa account does not have any information because that account is not connected. But you want to be able to connect your accounts. And to get to your accounts, it would be under the banking navigation screen over on the left that you see here. So if you click on banking, this is where you see all the accounts that are connected, okay?
Right.
It's just a little help screen that comes up when you're going through this, and you can always go back to that by clicking on Take the Tour.
Okay.
What this will show you, it will show you the general information, what they call the index card for each account. You can name it anything you want. If you want to put the checking account and then maybe the last 4 digits so you know what account it is or the bank that it is, you can do that. And as I showed you before, you can put them in whatever order you'd like. The reason you do this is so that the bank will automatically download, or QBO will automatically download information from your bank when you connect the account. Some banks have started doing a connection where if you know that some banks have tokens, they will talk to QBO and give QBO a token so that you don't have, if you change your sign-on credentials for the bank, you don't have to update the information through QBO. Not all banks are doing that yet. You'll be notified when your bank is making that change. That's a thing that the banks and Intuit have worked on.
Right.
But when you connect an account, if you want to connect an account, you would be asked initially to locate the account's website. Let me just say, we can add an account here. You'll put in the account's website. Some of the more popular ones are listed here. And then it will ask you for your credentials and verify that information. It will connect to the bank, and it'll let you know that you're ready to go, and we'll start downloading. Normally, when you do the initial download, it'll do the last 90 days of transactions. If you need to do more, you can always export from your bank and import into QBO, and that's going into a little more detail than we want to do today, but it's important.
It's a huge time saver, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And it's important to do this because, as you'll see, the transactions come in from your bank each day. And then all you have to do is you can add them. If you already have the information in your account, you can match them, as you see here, and it just verify that the information is there. When you're on this screen, if you can sort it by date, you can sort it by description. If you have a lot of transactions, you can sort it by description, and then you can take all of the transactions for a particular item, if they were all the same and you were ready to go with them, you could just click on all of them at one time, and then you can batch the transactions to accept them all at one time. It doesn't have to be the same person. Any transactions you know are good to go, you can do them as a batch instead of adding each one and waiting for QBO to add it and come back to the screen. That could save time as well.
Yeah, Terri, is that kind of a theme that you see? I think we see that throughout QuickBooks Online, that you can batch actions in a few different areas.
There are certain things. You'll see a lot of times, you will see the batch actions menu, and then if it's available, it will show up there. One time where it's not available is if you're sending invoices. You can only send one invoice at a time because it is emailing the invoice.
Gotcha.
So that's something that can only be done one at a time. But a lot of times it will be there, and you can batch the items that you need to do. And it's a time saver instead of going back and forth with QBO. Works with when you need to match something as well as when you want to just add a bunch of transactions you know are good to go.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So let me ask you a question, Terri. And you know, I should have said at the beginning of the webinar, we've been working in QuickBooks for quite a few years now. We probably were early adopters, and there are probably two trains of thought out there. There's people that love it, there's people that hate it. There isn't too much middle ground, but the truth is, in my experience, when you know how to use something, it's easy to use. Sounds pretty straightforward. One little time saver, Terri, this took me forever to figure out. Because if you're going from desktop to QuickBooks Online, in desktop, you could have a list of open windows. How do we work on multiple things at once when we're online because it's a one-dimensional screen?
That's on my list. That's what I was going to get to next.
I know. That's a big one.
Thank you. If you have multiple windows, multiple monitors, it's a big time saver because you can look at the two windows at once. If you wanted to open a different, you're in your bank right now and you wanted to go to a customer, you go over to the navigation screen on the left. If you right click on any, let's say we right click on customers, you'll get a window, a notification where you can open it in a new tab or in a new window. So if you open it in a new tab, you'll see a second tab come up here, and you've got your banking information there. You've got your customer information here. If you have a separate monitor, you can actually pull this information over to your second monitor. I work with double screens a lot in QBO because you need to look at two different things at one time. As simple as that. That's the way most of the time when you're doing work, that's the way it is. If you don't have two monitors, you can split your screen. If you're Windows based, if you use the Windows key and an arrow, I'm on customers right now. Let's open one, we'll do a whole different window. Let's go to expenses. We'll open up vendors in a different window. So now this has its own window. If I'm on this window here, hit the Windows key and your left arrow, and it'll split that. So there, and then I could bring this one back up here. And then you have two windows split working at the same time.
This is especially helpful when, like Terri, like you said, when you have either multiple monitors or you have big monitors. Right now, as we look at it on the webinar, it's kind of crowded, so it might not make sense to split your screen. Right. So splitting your screen, and of course you can do that across any platform if you're on a Windows-based system, and I'm sure Mac has something similar. But especially in the financial realm, it's often helpful to have two windows open or multiple windows open at once as you're producing your invoices or paying your bills or whatever it might be.
Right. And then again, if you only have the one monitor, you can always open something up in a new tab, and you can do as many tabs as you want and then just move from one to the other.
I find this particularly helpful when I'm looking at a report and I want to keep the summary report open, but I want to see the detail, or I have a question about something on a customer. So that's when I find it particularly helpful. For us, it's at end of month when we're doing invoicing, and I'm kind of looking at multiple aspects of a customer billing.
Correct. And when since we're getting into that and you're looking at reports, we can go to that report section now. If you're in reports, you can do custom reports where you would take a standard report, customize it the way you want, and then save it as a custom report. But one thing to note, and again, I use it all the time, so it's become second nature for me, but you may not be aware of this. When you're in a report, you can drill down on any number by clicking on it, and then it will give you the details for that particular number. So that's another way of looking at something. And then if you wanted to see what this invoice was, you can click on the invoice, and it'll bring you that instead. So there's ways of drilling down to get information if you need to look at one particular item. So that's something to keep in mind as well. It's something that may not be, and everyone may not realize that that's available. And then just to get back to your regular report, you can just arrow back, which is a way to get back to anything, and you're back to your original report.
So Terry, come to that main report screen. Go back one more. Okay. So you can make a standard report a favorite. That's what those green stars are,
That's
correct?
One good thing with the reports, if you don't know what the report is called, or you don't know where it is, and you don't want to scroll through this whole list here.
Because there are a lot.
Yeah, you can put in your search menu, you want a time report, and it'll give you your time reports. Any day now.
Yeah.
So it'll give you time reports. Go back to the report list. You can try something else. If you're not sure what you're looking for, that's a good way to do it. They do break it down into business overview and accounts receivable and accounts payable. But that's another way of finding things. Once you have a report, and then if you have a report, you want to make it a favorite, that's fine. You can make it a favorite to show up at the top. However, most of the time, what I've seen with my clients and with the way we handle things, you want to customize it. You want it to have the look the way you want it to look, have the information you want it to have. So I would go in and I would change this. Maybe I would put in to compare the previous year and then run the report that way. So you see the numbers, and this doesn't have.
Oh, it might not have the previous year's data. We're in a sample file. Oh, there we go.
Okay, so you see it shows the column, but there's no
it.
previous years because this is a sample file.
Right.
And then once you've got that, you can customize it by different, you can put different rows or columns in, you can filter it. All these different things are available. Once you have it customized, save it, give it a name. If you want to group it as monthly reports, you can add a new group and make it monthly reports. Type in monthly reports. We're going to call it balance sheet, previous year comparison, and then we're going to didn't say that. Okay, balance sheet. Previous year comparison. We're going to save that in monthly reports, and we're going to hit save. So now when we go back to our report list, we're going to go to custom reports, and you'll see that's there.
Right. Okay, one of my favorite things is, and I don't know if you can demo this or we can just tell it, every Sunday night, QuickBooks, sends me a report of who owes me money. So some of these reports can be set up to automatically generate and send. Is that something we can show everyone?
We can show the screen. This is it right here. Okay. You'd have your report.
Oh, there you go. Yep.
It cannot be part of a group if it's going to be shared.
Okay.
Only because it will follow the whole group's sharing.
Gotcha.
So it can't be part of a group. But if you say to share it with all, you can set an email schedule, indicate the day you want it. So you want it sent weekly. Okay. If you say you want it sent every Sunday, If you notice here, it says the next date is 3/23. That's actually Saturday's date, but that's okay because you will get it emailed on Sunday. It's Saturday's information is what it's doing.
Oh, okay.
And then you
Okay.
get, because it emails right the first thing in the morning.
Gotcha.
And then you type in the email addresses that you want to send it to. You can type in a message. Like if I'm sending this to Donna, I would put Donna's email in. I'd say, hi, Donna, here's the accounts receivable list for this week.
Right. Right.
And then this can go to within your own company. It can go to a vendor if you're sending them, or rather a client, customer, if you're sending them an invoice. However you want it done. If you have something you want scheduled to be done every single week or every single month, this is the way to do it.
And for all of you, we all know cash flow is key. So staying on top of your receivables is so important for any business. And I find this report nudges me to make sure somebody's staying on top of receivables. So these automatically generated reports are a huge time saver in so many ways.
Another report you may want to do, you may want to generate a quarterly budget report.
Mm.
So you can see your budgets every quarter and see if you're on track or whatever. That's not something you want to see all the time, but maybe on a quarterly basis. That's another suggestion, another thing that we've done for people.
Right. And we don't need to demo this, but I could just say what we do is when we're doing bookkeeping for clients, for each client, we have a package of management reports. So when we're done for the month reconciling their accounts, each client gets a dashboard of reports specific to their particular needs. Obviously, P&L would be that. It might be P&L compared to last year. It might be P&L by month, budget. And then you can generate and send all those reports that look really nice at the click of a button. So there's a ton of time savers when it comes to reports, and knowing how to analyze your financial information is more important, if not equally important, to having a solid bookkeeping system, which is QBO gives you a good platform for that.
Okay, we're jumping around a little bit.
Imagine that.
So
Me
far?
having anyone jump around. We're good. Keep going. I'm going to save them till the end, Terry.
Okay, got it. Okay. One of the other time savers, if you're back into banking, just so we'll get back to that. If you're in your checking account, you're in your index box here, you can go to your register from here by clicking on the go to register over on the right, and it will bring up your register. This gives you everything. It gives you from the beginning of your QBO accounts data. So obviously it will always sort in date order with the most recent at the top. However, if you're looking for a particular payment that you made and it was a payment for $75, you can filter that. You can filter things in the register so you're not scrolling through your entire register and maybe even 12 months of data or more. You can filter things by reconciled status, by transaction type if you just want to see your expenses, by payee. You can just say, and want to see everything that was paid to computers by Jenny, or you can filter it by date. Now, the other thing that you don't see here is filtering it by the amount, and that's something that you might want to do. So if you just in the find screen, you type $75 and hit apply, you were going to see just payments, no matter who they were from or when they were done, for $75.
This is a huge time saver.
Absolutely, because you do not want to scroll through everything and trying to find these payments. It may be 10 transactions, it may be 110 transactions. You don't need to do all that. It's a big time saver. When you're done with that, you just click on the X or clear filter and you're good to go. Everything comes back at you. As I said, if you want to see everything that you've paid to computers by Jenny, you can sort it by payee, and then we didn't pay her anything in this time frame. But that's the way to do that. And this filter is a huge time saver. You'll see this filter in some other areas too, but that definitely saves you time in your registers. And this applies to your check register, your credit card register, any of the registers that you have access to. you'll see that that will be in there. So if you look at your Visa account, oh, they don't have that in there. These are, as I said, this is a temp file. So you can filter credit card receipts that way. Keep in mind, it's only going to filter by payee. So if you have an expense like this that's for automobile, but there's no payee, it will not show up. So that's not just something to keep in mind. You can't filter by the account. You'd have to go into the account information to do that.
Or sometimes when I'm looking for something, and this is probably the wrong way to do it, sometimes if I'm looking for a category, like an account of expenses, I'll run a P&L for the period and then zoom in on that particular account, and I could see all the transactions in one spot.
Correct. Another way to get to that is by going to your chart of accounts. If you go to your accounting navigation, on the navigation screen on the left, you go to accounting, you'll see chart of accounts come up. So if you click on that, I'm just going to open that in a new tab, it'll show your full chart of accounts.
And you can look at a register for anything.
And you can look at anything, correct.
Gotcha.
And if you're just going through things for the first time, you do get those little tips and tricks that come up as they do that. So you want to look at travel. You just start typing in and it'll bring up your travel accounts, and then you could run a report for that. So that's another way of doing that if you wanted to get to a particular account and you don't know who the transaction was to or when it was or what the amount was.
Right.
It will always come up with a 90-day period, but you can change that to anything you want. You can customize it, or you could just change it to all dates, and then it would pop up.
Right. So the truth is, and I know we've got a few more minutes left. The truth is, for those of you like myself who ever did any database work, QBO is a phenomenally powerful database-oriented program. But the thing is, the information has to be input correctly so that you can then find it in a gazillion different ways. It's very powerful. Correct.
One other item, I know we're getting short on time here, so there's a couple other things I just wanted to touch base on that are time savers. If you have a extremely long list of clients or of vendors and you want to eliminate some because you don't deal with them anymore, if you click on a vendor, if you click on the down arrow over here, oh, it's not there. Okay, you got to click on the vendor's name. This is a clients list. You can make this client inactive. Okay, if you make them inactive, it will not delete them completely. The information will still be there. But by making them inactive, they will disappear from the list. That was Bill's Windsurf Shop. It says it's deleted, but it's still there. When you go back to your client, your customer list again, you'll see Bill's shop is not there anymore. If you want to see which ones were made inactive, you go to your settings, include inactive, and then he shows up again with the notation that he's deleted, meaning he's inactive. You have the opportunity to make them active again at any time.
Right.
And then he'll show back up regular. And all his data will still be there.
Right. And, you know, Terry said this before earlier in the webinar, but I want to repeat it. One of the reasons, there's many reasons you would want to do maybe some annual cleanup on making vendors or clients or items that you're not using inactive because, and we might touch on this as well, but at some point you might get some help with your bookkeeping, hopefully you will, but it prevents mistakes. If it's not there as an option, it eliminates the possibility of that vendor or client being used incorrectly, but also it saves keystrokes. And when you have this much data, if you can save, 5 keystrokes 5 times a day, it really adds up over time. So I recommend that you all have kind of part of maybe getting ready for your taxes. You're all doing that now if you haven't done it already. But one of those year-end tasks would be to go through your lists and make those that are inactive actually inactive.
Correct. And especially if you have duplicate ones. Once an account is set up, a vendor account, a client account, an item list, once something is put in there, it's never actually deleted completely. It never goes away. So if you created Bill's Windsurf Shop and then somebody else created Bill Jones Windsurf Shop and it's the same account, you can merge it, or if one has not been used, you can just make it inactive and then it won't show up on the list. And as Donna said, there's less chance of confusion that way. But you can definitely, the information is there and it will always stay there. Even sub-accounts, you can make a sub-account. As you see here, Freeman Sporting Goods has 2 different locations, so they have 2 different accounts. You can make one account inactive and keep the other one, or you can add a third one and delete one. That it works for sub-accounts as well as for main accounts. And that would hold true for, you know, if you have an item list or a services list, same thing there. They're never really gone, but you can make them inactive just to eliminate having to scroll through all of them and having the wrong thing picked.
Yeah, and that also goes to, you know, having clean data on your reports. I mean, we're looking at customers, but that would apply to items on your, you know, what you sell. If something's inactive, you know, you want to make it inactive so that your P&L, when you run it, is really clean.
Correct.
Terri, before we get to Q&A, and I think you're going to do this, but one of the things that's a huge time saver here at C3 Workplace is we have a lot of recurring services. So in other words, when somebody signs up for a virtual office, it's the same amount every month. When someone they rent an office from us, it's the same amount every month. Can you demonstrate for our audience a little bit about the amazing time-saving ability of memorizing invoices?
Yes, one thing I want to point out before we go to the navigation screen on your left is your different areas that you can see. And as you go over them, you'll see different things pop up. You also have a navigation up at the top with the plus sign up here and the gear, what they call the gear icon. The plus sign will give you a way to create anything you need to create. Under customers, you have all your sales information. Under vendors, you have all your expense information. You have employee information in the 3rd column and miscellaneous information in the 4th column. So that's how you would create any particular item. Under the gear icon is where you have your company information, your accounts and settings, your lists, any different tools, importing and exporting, as well as your company profile. What Donna was referring to, you memorize transactions in QBO are called recurring transactions. And if you go to your list, you'll see that recurring transactions are there, and it will give you a list of any things that are happening every month. Your options here are very easy. If you wanted to create a new one, you tell them whether it's a bill, a check, an invoice. We can create an invoice, whatever it's going to be, you can do that. And then you're going to set up the parameters for this recurring transaction. And you would build this just like you would build an invoice, however it's recurring. So you're going to give it a name, so we can call it bills monthly invoice. You can schedule it to just automatically send once a month, or you can set it up as a reminder. So it will let you know 3 days before the date that you're going to put on it, when it's due to be done, and you can review it to make sure. You can pull up your customer. Their email address. You can have it done quarterly, weekly, monthly is what we do with our invoices. Whatever day of the month you bill on, if you bill on the 15th of the month, every month, and you put your start date. So you would put your next billing date as a start date. If you're only going to bill them, or if it's a bill that you're putting in and it's only for 6 months, you can pick the end date. So you be able to put that in as well. And then you would set it up like a normal form. Your invoice would have your product, your services, etc. Let you know about any discounts or any information you want there, and you would save the template. So when you save it, we have to put something in.
Funny how they're picky about that.
They're not that picky, but they want something. So we save it, and then you're going to see on your recurring list bills, invoices, and this is set up as a reminder. So what that means is 3 days before it's due, so on April 12th, When you go to your dashboard and you open up your QBO at the beginning of the month, you're going to get a reminder that pops up here saying you have a reminder, so you have transactions that are waiting to be done. And that's your reminder. If you want it to just go out on its own, it's scheduled, it will go out on its own.
Right. So the other way that you can create, and I'm only speaking from the little bit that I do in QuickBooks, is so if I am setting up a new client and it's a recurring invoice, I can actually create the invoice and then memorize it.
Correct.
And it will make it a recurring transaction. So as I think is often the case in QBO, there's more than one way to get something done. But the point is, having memorized transactions, whether they are your monthly invoices, whether they are the bills that you pay every month, this is where huge time savers come in. As you start to make all of these things automatic, you're just verifying, you're not entering, it's all being done for you. You're checking and verifying.
One of the things that I use recurring transactions for is for payroll. Because there's so many categories that you have to, if you're doing payroll and it's all direct deposit, you don't have to worry about checks. There's still different accounts that the information has to go in to record payroll.
Right.
So by having a recurring transaction in there, I have all my accounts set up, and what I do is when I put the payroll in for the first time, I'll save that, and whether it's a journal entry or an expense or a check, you'll see this make recurring at the bottom, and it will take that information that you've put in and it will make it recurring. I could change the numbers anytime I want when I actually use the transaction, but at least the categories, the accounts that I need to set up, the notations I need to set up are there. So this way it makes it a lot easier to plug in the numbers for each pay period.
Right. So Terri, believe it or not, we're almost there. So
Okay.
A couple of questions. Is there anything kind of burning that you want to share with our group? I do have a couple of questions here.
Let's go to the questions because
Okay.
I think we covered the main items we wanted to go over.
Okay. So one of the questions I have here is, I made a deposit, but I made it to the wrong account. How can I fix that?
Very easy. You go to your register. Make sure you're in the checking account. You go to the register. It's a simple matter, and this does happen because sometimes you're in a hurry to do it. You don't realize that you don't have the correct account listed. So you go to your deposit, click edit, and up here you'll see your account. So you may have a checking account, you may have a savings account, and for some reason it remembers you put something in the savings account, and that's what it remembered from the last time you made a deposit. So you can go ahead and you can change it right there. Save it. You can do save and close. Okay. It's giving me an error message because it knows it's not right.
But you get the gist of it.
But that's what it is right there, and then it will move it from one account to the next.
Gotcha.
It's something that does happen more frequently than you think.
I agree, because I know I've made that mistake as well. But similarly, there's a question here. How do you transfer between accounts without, having to do multiple, entries or journal entry? And I don't even understand journal entries, so that's not something I can help with.
This is good. Another reason why you want to have your bank feeds, where you have the bank, the QBO importing information from the bank each time.
Mm-hmm.
What it will come up if you see that there's another account there. Okay, you click on the transaction and you can change it from matching it to adding it.
Gotcha.
Or to record a transfer. And then you just select the transfer account. Say we want to transfer this because it was a payment from checking to your credit card. You want to transfer it from the checking account to your MasterCard. And you would select that and then record the transfer. Then when you get to the MasterCard side, you're going to see that if you go to the bank feed for MasterCard, you're going to see the same transaction. And by the time you get there, it's going to say that it already has it in the register because QBO put it in the MasterCard register already, and then you just have to match it.
Gotcha. Yeah, because if you enter your credit card payments incorrectly, it can skew your P&L. incorrectly as well.
Correct.
Awesome. And that's why credit card accounts are set up similar to bank accounts.
Correct.
Okay, good.
You want to set it up because you're recording the expenses that are coming into the credit card account as they come in.
Right.
The payment to the credit card account just is a transfer of funds.
Right. So as they come in, that's when you're incurring a liability. When you pay it, you reduce that liability.
Correct.
Got it. So just before we wrap up, there's one question here, and I can help with this one. The question is regarding, the QuickBooks Online app. Terri, I know you don't use it that much because you're really using from the back office, and I'm not able to demo the app because I can't share my phone. But what I can tell you is that the QBO app is amazingly powerful, and really, as the business owner, the truth is, as I said before, chances are you're not going to be doing all your bookkeeping forever. Chances are you're going to get help from somebody because, frankly, it's not the best use of your time. But having that app as the business owner allows me to peek in, see what's going on, run some quick reports. It does have some limited functionality, but the truth is it's very powerful. So I love the QBO app in conjunction with the QBO file. And similarly, one thing I also wanted to mention is if you choose to have someone help you with your bookkeeping, whether that's internally or externally, Terri, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think users can be set up with different levels of access to information.
Absolutely. There is, and that's all under the gear icon, which is your company information. You can manage your users there, and it will tell you everybody that has access to the account. Okay, this one doesn't have any right now, but if you add a user, you have the standard user, you can have the company administrator, you can have somebody who just has access to reports or just is able to track their time in QBO. And I do have clients that do that. The only thing they can see is their timesheets.
Right.
And they can do it that way. But once you select the standard user, then you can actually limit their access as well. You can say you want them to have limited access where they can only see customers and sales, or they can only see vendors, depending upon what their responsibilities are. Are they responsible for putting in invoices or for paying bills? So you can limit information that way.
Right, and you can customize it.
Correct.
So we've hit that point. Like I say, these webinars go really fast, and our idea is to equip you to be more efficient. Terri, thank you very much. This was so informative. Thank all of you for joining us today. We will send out a link to the recording. And, as always, we're here to help. We are happy to do a complimentary consult, whether it's you need some help on how you're doing your books, or perhaps you're considering outsourcing, or maybe you want to set up a budget, or maybe you just know that a little bit of training would get you further along in your financial literacy. And I firmly believe that financial literacy, you either have to have it or hire it to make good business decisions. So thank you all for joining us. Watch our webpage, our event page on our website. We do these webinars at least once a month. And if you have any suggestions as to what you'd like to learn from us, we'd also love to hear that. So Terri, thank you. You were fantastic.
Thank you. I hope everybody got some good information.
We did. And thank you all. And we hope that this helps you to be more productive. And have a great day, everyone. Thanks so much.